vestigial organs. This is really, really important. Everybody pay attention. If it is reduced in size or function, it is a vestigial organ. If its function is absent or reduced, it is vestigial. I put reduced in red and italics here because I want you to remember it. A lot of people who don't like the E word, who don't want to talk about evolution, want to pretend it doesn't exist, they say, oh, well, that still has a function. It can't be vestigial. No, if it's not being used for its main original purpose, it's still considered to be vestigial. So, let's go through some examples. Hey, we got lizards! Would you agree that lizards use their legs for a couple things? The number one reason for lizard legs is walking, okay? But they also could use their legs for holding on to a mate or for stimulating the mate. Would you agree?
Yes.
Right? Hey, check it out! We got lizards. They're still lizards.
They're still over.
Those legs are not much good for walking. Okay? These are lizards. These are not snakes. You can see that very clearly. These legs are not much good for walking, especially those. Those legs are not good for walking. Look at them. Look at them. How do you think these guys live? Yeah, they slither like snakes. But they are not snakes. They are lizards. And they got legs. Just not useful ones for walking. They're on the way to losing their legs. Hey, check it out. Those are all the ones on the last slide are skinks. We have skinks in Florida too. You've probably seen these, right?
Yeah.
We got you go down south of Bartow, you go to the Mosaic Peace River Park. It's full of these things. The blue skinks, the blue-tailed skinks. Their real name is the five-line skink, and they only have the blue tail when they're babies. The tail gets real dull as they grow up. But anyway, you've seen these around here if you've ever wandered around the outdoors. These are a very Polk County thing. Well, guess what? These are also skinks that we also have in Florida. I don't know about that one, but I've seen this one here in Polk County too. Legs, no legs. They're both skinks, okay? It's not like, oh, skinks are losing their legs. There are some skinks that have flat out lost their legs, don't have them anymore. It's not a snake. Snakes don't have eyelids. This does. Yes?
I have a question. It might sound dumb. But you're saying, like, okay, because they don't need their legs, they're going to lose them, right? That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying they. What you said is almost right. I want to tweak it slightly. Okay? I'm saying they don't need their legs, so if they have a mutation that causes them to lose their legs, it doesn't matter. And it might be a good thing because it's easier for them to go through sand and through grass without the legs because they're not using them, they're just getting caught on things. So if you have a mutation that makes the legs smaller, that's not going to be taken out of the population. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, now ask your question.
Okay, that went away. If I would ask first the question, that sounds stupid. So.
Well, no, go ahead. Oh, or you can ask me.
I was going to like say, if you're saying that they lose them because they don't use it, like they don't need them, I was going to say that's like saying we shouldn't have appendix because everybody gets something out because we don't need them. Like,
Oh, there's a real good.
Question,
It would be great if we didn't have appendixes.
So it's only if it's a mutation happens. So that's
Right.
It's not just their legs are going to disappear because they don't use them.
Right, exactly. What happens, a lot of people, they say what you just said and it's not necessarily true. They'll say use and disuse. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. Well, guess what? That's maybe 80% true. What the honest truth, the whole truth is use and disuse. If you don't use it, and you get a mutation that causes it to get smaller and not use it, well, natural selection is totally going to use that because the thing was in your way. If you use it, if it has some function, it'll probably be kept around in some way, But over time, things are going to get less and less because you're not using them in general. But there's no guarantee. Just like the shrike did not get the mutations that gave it the eagle beak and the talons, right? But if the shrike got him, you dang well know you'd be better at killing mice. All right. So, it's not just skinks. Here we have snakes. We can go the other direction. Every now and then when you look at a boa constrictor, especially the males, you see claws. Not much left of the legs. The legs are internal, but here you have a piece of the pelvis. Here you've got a little piece of the leg. You've got a little claw. And the claw is outside of the body. Okay, that's a boa constrictor. That happens. fairly often. It's not uncommon to find this on males. That might be there, you could say, oh, but it's not vestigial, it's used to stimulate the mate. Well, maybe, but I'll tell you, it's sure not used for walking. And if you've got a pelvis, you used to walk, and you're not walking. So it's vestigial. Legs on snakes, vestigial. You with me? All right, here's a fun one. This is the same species. The ones above ground have eyeballs. The ones below ground that live in the caves don't. And they're actually starting to have their body change shape a little. Would you agree the bodies are not even the same shape?
Yeah.
But they still can breed together. So this is incipient speciation, just like the squirrel. But this is certainly on the way to becoming its own species. It's got totally different body shape and no eyeballs. Why? Just what Leah was asking about before. It's not, oh, I live in the cave, I will not have eyeballs. It's, I live in the cave, oh, I get a mutation that messes up my eyeballs. Meh, I can't use them anyway. So there's no selection against that allele, and it stays in the population. Are you with me? Okay. All right, my personal favorite again, because we're getting back to whales. This is Joy Reidenberg. She's holding a whale pelvis. Yes, whales have a pelvis. No, they can't walk. It's not even hooked to the backbone. They don't have legs, usually. We'll get to that, they don't have legs. But right here, it is a greatly reduced function. Whale can't walk. Some people say, oh, well, that can't be vestigial because, you know, the muscles around the penis, they still attach to the pelvis. That's true, but you would agree that's only one of the many functions. And I said our definition of vestigial, if the original function is absent or reduced, that's vestigial. The main function of legs is gone. It's vestigial. All right. Oh, and here's a really cool one. You remember how the chickens still had the gene for teeth? You just had it turned on? Dolphins, whales still have the genes for back legs. You probably guessed because they're making a pelvis all the time. But every now and then you'll get one that makes little tiny back flippers. How's that for cool? So they still can't walk on it. That pelvis is still not attached to the spine, but every now and then you get a mutation that causes them to develop their limbs a little bit more than normal. Just like every now and then you get one where your boa constrictor develops a little bit more than normal. You see it? You see it? Isn't it cool? Just saying it. All right, so 6 types of evidence for evolution. What we see in the fossils, traces of evolutionary history in existing organisms, that's phylogeny and stuff. Similarities and divergences of evolution, direct observation of genetic change in populations, continental drift and biogeography, that's what we were talking about before. Remember I said I'd tell you more about that? Okay. By the way, that's something that Alfred Russel Wallace was famous for. He totally figured that out. He's kind of the father of biogeography. And the present day formation of new species. But we've gone over that. You already know that we've seen some of that. So let's go through this. Evolution is strongly supported by the fossil record. So fossils are the preserved remains or impressions of formerly living organisms. You look for intermediate species, ones with intermediate features. A lot of people say, the missing link. Scientists don't use that term. Because a lot of times you're not going to find something like, you know you had this and you know you had this and you're going to find the one in between the missing link. That's not what you're probably going to find because fossils are really uncommon. The chance of finding that is not likely. But since evolution is not from this to this to this, it's more of a branching tree. Remember how I compared it to a bush? You got this branch and this branch and this branch. You can very often find something roughly in the area that has intermediate traits between two lineages. Here we have an Archaeopteryx, okay? An Archaeopteryx, we found 11 of these so far, by the way. All right, it's a bird, it had feathers. There's no question that it had feathers. Do you see the lines from the feathers? Well, you see the lines from the feathers in the mud. Well, what used to be the mud? The sandstone. All right, we had feathers going on. There's no question of that. So, not surprising, kind of bird-like. Check this out. You know, a lot of animals, when they die, they arch their neck backwards and all from rigor mortis. Teeth. Is it a bird or a dinosaur? Mm-hmm.
It's a lizard.
Yeah, it's a bird or a lizard. I don't know. It's got feathers. It's got teeth. Now, you remember, you saw the whole thing that Horner was talking about with the look of the tail in a chicken, and how they had a long tail in the embryo, but it's reduced in size and reabsorbs. There's no reabsorption there. We got a long tail like a lizard. But what do we have? We have feathers coming off it down the whole length. You see them? You see them? All right. So it's a bird with teeth and a long lizard-like tail, but feathers. Anybody ever had a turkey dinner for Thanksgiving? Few people. Nobody else will admit to this. Okay, fine. Has anybody ever broken the wishbone at turkey dinner?
Oh yeah.
Did you see any wishbone on there?
Not back in
No. A wishbone is made out of bones. It's the fusion of two bones that we call the clavicles, our collarbones. And a bird is fused into what they call the fancy anatomy word for a wishbone is a furcula. No furcula going on there. Separate little collarbones. So you can't anchor those big breast muscles for serious flying. Oh, what's that other thing that a chicken or a turkey has? That big keel bone. You know, had your turkey dinner, had your chicken dinner. You've seen their sternum is. That's our sternum, our breastbone, modified into this big keel bone that sticks down. You can attach big pectoral muscles to, so they can pull really hard, so they can flap. Am I right? Does his sternum stick out in a prominent keel? No. That bone, right? Guess what? Do you see that there? No. So what do we got? We got something that it's got lizard-like teeth. It's got a lizard-like skeleton. I forgot to mention. Check it out. Claws on the wings. Okay. We got lizard-like teeth, we got lizard-like tail. And I'll be honest, there are a few birds that have claws on the wings, modern ones, very few, most people don't know about them. There are more than you think. Ducks do, but they're buried in the feathers. Ostriches do too. But anyway, it's got claws on the wing, but it has lizard-like teeth, has a lizard-like tail, it has lizard-like chest, it has a lizard-like collar. But it's covered in feathers. Now some people like to say, oh, well that was not a transitional fossil, that's pure bird. Well, if you want to call it that, fine, but it's got all these lizard-like parts. It's transitional, whether you want to draw the line here and say it's a bird-like lizard, or you want to draw a line here and say it's a lizard-like bird. I don't care. It's transitional. It's got things that fit both groups. Okay? I don't care if you want to say it's a very lizard-like bird, if you want to say it's a very bird-like lizard, very bird-like dinosaur. This is a transitional fossil. Draw the line where you want. That's intermediate. Does this make sense? All right. There's the transitional fossil. Here's a transitional fossil. We got our horses. I love the fact that they showed this one. The reason I love it is you can't think, oh, it's a steady chain from this to that. Some of the things we have that are intermediate are actually from the branching off on other parts of the chain. But when you look at horse toes, the earliest things we think of as horses, Hyracotherium, the dawn horse, used to be called Eohippus, got 4 toes. You get further up, Merchahippus, you got 1 central toe, but you got 2 small toes on the side. See them here? Okay. Here you got 3 toes that are touching the ground. Here you got 1 central toe, 2 on the side. Here in a modern horse, Equus calibus, they walk like this. They're flipping you off. Right there. All right, we're back to the fun animals. We got whales. You have Artiocetus, you have Protozoolon, and here we have the, I hate Amazon river dolphins, they're so ugly. They are. Don't worry, you'll see in lab, I'll show you. The important thing here, look at this. Nostrils, nostrils, nostrils up there. if you look at the age, now when they break it down just like this, you think, oh, there's some steady movement. There's not. Remember I said that evolution actually is branching, and you get some that do this and some that do that. No, but clearly, this replumbing of the skull, we've got some intermediate forms. Prozeuglodon, that means before the zeuglodon. There's another one called zeuglodon that's a little different. But you see what I'm talking about, right? You have the original where the nose is at the front of the face. You have modern where the nose is up here, and we've found intermediates. So as people, there are no missing links, there are no intermediates. We've got plenty of intermediates. We didn't used to. Oh, here we go. Now the fun starts. This is Dorodon. Actually, I'm mispronouncing it. I think most people say Dorudon, but whatever. I don't care. What I care about, first we'll show you what most people think is the important thing on this. And then we'll show you what really is the most important thing. What most people get hung up about is, oh, look, it had a pelvis that was free-floating in the flesh back there, and it had legs that had the one bone, the femur, and the two bones, the tibia and the fibula, and it had the little tarsal bones and the little digits, and it must have had external flippers. And they get all excited about that. And that is a big deal, because everyone we found, that's what you're going to see. But since we have seen modern dolphins that way every now and then, I'm like, yeah. To me, the thing about this that makes it a fossil intermediate is this. Okay? Now remember, I'm a little biased. Dolphin flippers are my thing. This is what I studied. All right. I know you were not in my class when you did skeletal, but I know that you know this. What is the O name for, oh, I better turn it back off again. No, I'm not going to. All right. Right here, no, I have to so you can see it better. I need to lighten that picture up, take the screen cap. Right here, this, radius and ulna, back of the ulna sticking up here. What is the O name for that huge projection? Exactly, the olecranon process. And what attaches right there? It's an extensor. Triceps.
Oh, yeah.
Triceps. Okay? So there is no question that thing could bend its elbow. You had a serious attachment. Look at a modern olecranon process on a modern dolphin flipper. That joint is fixed. It is immobile. It does not move. You want an intermediate fossil? This is your intermediate. This thing could move its elbows, and modern ones cannot. And there's no way around that. You see it? You see it? Oh, there have never been any transitional fossils. Oh, screw you. There have been tons of them. And this is my favorite. Are you with me? All right. Yeah, because everybody's getting all hung up about the pelvis at the rear. Oh, look, Dorodon, it had a pelvis and the rear legs. I'm like, I've seen that in modern dolphins. That is intermediate. Flexible elbows. Oh, I did blow it up. Sorry, I did. I was saying, no, I need to. From both sides. There it is. See? Serious attachment. Serious attachment. All right. I mean, every bony landmark you look at, everyone you had to learn, they're prominent there. They're designed to attach things to. In the modern one, they're greatly reduced. Why? Because it's not real important. But the point is that I, as an evolutionary biologist, am going to look at that and say, hey, when this one gene works in this species and it works in this species and works in this species, that's evidence. That's evidence of common descent. And furthermore, the way that genes are modified, I'm going to look at as common descent. Hey, what's slang for a British person? Limeys. Because the way that the British Navy fought scurvy, they would put limes on all the ships. Once they figured out that a vitamin C deficiency is what was making all their sailors sick, they would put vitamin C. Everybody, every day, had to eat, whether they liked them or not, had to eat a section of lime. Because it would keep their teeth from falling out. It would keep their skin from going bad. It would keep them healthier. They're naval terms. That's where they came from. They're both methods of fighting scurvy. Now, I already told you this 30 seconds ago, so you ought to be able to repeat it. What causes scurvy? A deficiency in?
Vitamin C.
Vitamin C. how often do you have to feed vitamin C supplements to your dog? Never. Okay, that's good. How often do you have to feed them to your cat? Never. Do you know why? Dogs can make their own vitamin C. Cats can make their own vitamin C. Do you know what can make their own vitamin C? Almost every mammal. There are very few mammals that don't make their own vitamin C. In fact, there are three types that don't. Primates, bats, and guinea pigs. Everything else makes its own vitamin C. They have enzymes to convert other vitamins into vitamin C, vitamins that are easier to get in their food. Bats have a mutation that messes up one of the enzymes in the pathway. They can't make vitamin C. It's okay. They get it from their food. Guinea pigs have a mutation. Stops them from making the vitamin C. It messes up one of the enzymes. It's not the same mutation as the bat. But it's a mutation. It messes up one of the three enzymes that can't make vitamin C. Primates have a mutation that messes up the enzyme. So they have a non-functional enzyme. They don't make the enzyme in the right shape anymore. They can't make vitamin C. We have that same mutation. We don't have the mutation that bats do that messes up the making of the vitamin C. We don't have the mutation the guinea pig has that messes up the making of the vitamin C. We have the mutation that the chimpanzee has, that the monkey has. We have the primate mutation that messes up the vitamin C. So this is fetal traits. I'm kind of off topic because they were talking about the Hox gene, but when we get to DNA and it talks about the DNA evidence, it's not just the similarities in the genes that we're using. It's similarities in genes that we are not using. Our messed up genes show common heritage. What would I, as an evolutionary biologist, say is the reason why all of the primates have the same messed up gene and can't make vitamin C? I'd say it's because they all descended from one primate that had a messed up gene that couldn't make vitamin C. All right, let's move on. So, humans. Embryonic traits. Would you agree that we don't use gills unless you're in a comic book and you're Aquaman? But if you leave Aquaman out of it, we don't use gills. We develop pharyngeal gill pouches to make gills as we're embryos. This is a human embryo, and then we reabsorb them. Never use them. You know what? Dolphins develop hind limb buds. Donella dolphins. But they don't make, modern dolphins don't typically make rear limbs like Orodon had. Of course, it does happen occasionally. But they're supposed to reabsorb those limb buds and not use them, not make the limbs. All right, so remember we talked about DNA, we talked about redundancy, or as you just saw with the Sonic Hedgehog gene, hey, this gene, it controls limbs in this animal. Let's look and see if we have a variant of that gene in another animal. Yeah, we do. What does it do? The same thing. But when you look at this, and I say similarities to DNA sequences, right here, if you look at a sequence in human A, you look at a sequence in human B, you might have some minor variant. But they're really close because they're both humans. Now you compare that to a chicken, you've got more variation, right? There are more differences from human A and chicken than there are from human A and human B. Why? Because human A and human B are related to one another more closely. Does that make sense? The thing that I want you to get, though, is this is not just something we see in genes that we're using. This is something we see in the genes we're not using too, like the messed up gene to make vitamin C. We can't make vitamin C. And the reason we can't make vitamin C is the reason why the chimp and the rhesus monkey can't make vitamin C, the reason the gorilla can't. It's not the reason the bat can't. Does that make sense? So, here we are, we're looking at DNA evidence for evolution. When you look at a rhesus monkey and you compare it to a human, they're looking at the cytochrome C gene. Remember, cytochrome C is one of the proteins in the electron transport chain of the mitochondria. This is DNA that changes very slowly, if at all. Because if you get a mutation in this and you denature it and it doesn't work, you don't make ATP, you die. Good? Good. So cytochrome C, important, very few mutations. When you look at a rhesus monkey and a human, there's only one difference between the two. When you look at a rhesus monkey and a dog, there are 13 differences. Does that make sense? That's why we say humans and monkeys more closely related than monkeys and dogs, right? So you compare, that makes sense, but if you compare a rhesus to a rattlesnake, 20 differences. Why do we have more from here to here than we do from here to here? Because we think that all the mammals are more closely related to each other than comparing a mammal to a reptile. That's a bigger difference. Does that make sense? And if you go to down here at the extreme, moths have mitochondria too. They have to make energy to flap their little wings and survive. But you look at their cytochrome C, there are 36 differences from the rhesus monkey cytochrome C. Why so much difference? Well, this doesn't even have a backbone, it's a bug. Of course it's gonna be different. What's interesting here is what we would predict that we would see is what we see. The things that we think are closely related, hey, they both have fur and hair and milk and babies and warm-blooded. They have very little difference. The things that, oh, I pupate and I grow wings and I have a crunchy exoskeleton, and they're gonna be more different. Does that make sense? All right. So, other evidence that we've seen. Genetic changes within a species. We've seen it, we've done it. We've caused artificial selection. Would you agree? Scientists could use drift to explain where fossils are found and make predictions. Here's a really, really good one. And I think that was connected to South America. Well, here's the problem. There are marsupials in South America, you know, possums. We've got possums all the way up from south to north. And there are a ton of marsupials in Australia, right? Well, if that was true, you should find fossil marsupials in Antarctica too. Somebody figured that out, and they started taking trips down to Antarctica every year looking for fossils. You know what they found? Marsupial fossils in Antarctica. Okay? So what they're finding, where things currently live and where things used to live, it matches what we were expecting about the movement of the plates. So drift explains where the fossils are found. Here's a good example. There's how everything was all hooked together before in Pangea and Gondwanaland. This is a lungfish. Where do lungfish live? Here's the problem. They're freshwater fish. They did not swim across the ocean. They would have died. So how do you end up with these fish, the fossils of these fish in the case of these pictures? But how do you end up with these fish here and here?
They were once together.
Yeah, continents were together. Here's the marsupial one. Like I said, we think that marsupials developed in the Americas and they moved across Antarctica into Australia. And the problem was that then you had the better at doing their job placental mammals come in, and they were out competing all of the marsupials, working their way down from North America to South America, well, Central America, South America, and about that time Antarctica and Australia broke off. And that's why the marsupials were left to do their own crazy things. Biogeography. The oldest marsupials we find are in North America, in the Americas, like we'd expect, and the modern diversants are in Australia, like we would expect. But we've also seen new species forming in nature, like the ground finch in Daphne major. You with me? And then the incipient speciation, things like the awesome Abert squirrel with the ears, right? Right? Oh, hey, we're at the end of this. That's okay. I've been bitten. Ow, he has teeth. Ow, ow, ow.